The title of the piece, Earth, refers to both the planet Earth and the stuff that's under our feet. When I was writing the piece, I had this sense that the materials of the piece were connected to each other in the way that the roots of a tree might be. So they're all connected to the same body, but all going out in different directions and all reaching at different depths. And I had this feeling also that that sort of model of the way that the roots are interspersed throughout the earth was related to the way that we as humans and as beings are related to the planet Earth. And I wanted to convey some of that sense of unity with the earth, and at the same time the idea of things branching out in their own directions while remaining connected to this. As well as ideas to do with nature, the piece Earth is also connected with the issue of war. And for me, this stemmed from the two of the texts I was looking at when I started to write it. One was Ted Hughes's poem Crow's Account of the Battle, and the other was Alexander Solzhenitsyn's novel August 1914. And there was something to do with the extremity of the contrasts that they were writing about in those texts. Both of them described conflict and battle at certain points through noise. So they talked about the extremities of sound and noise that were the memories of soldiers who came out of battle, as being the one thing that they were supremely aware of. So the way I wanted to reflect that issue of war in the piece was through this sort of description of sound. So what we have in the piece at certain points is extreme contrasts of sound, from rather quiet moments to extremely loud without really much warning. And then overall throughout the piece it begins and ends in a kind of stillness. But in the middle of the piece, the elements of the piece have built up a kind of conflict with one another to the point where the sound levels will be quite high, I think. This isn't meant to sound like a battle, but what it's meant to do is to bring home this kind of extreme contrast and the sheer physicality of sound that you can get with a symphony orchestra, which of course is nothing like the sound of a battle, but it's something that I wanted to surround the listener in, is that sort of sense of contrast and the fragility of life and its possibility of being extinguished immediately. One of the great opportunities with writing this piece was to get to write something that was going to be performed first in the old Fruitmarket in Glasgow, in this space that we're sitting in just now. And that connected with the idea that I had of wanting to, at points in the piece, surround the audience and surround the listeners in sound. So what the piece will have is an extra percussionist way up at the back of the building, up on the balcony, and throughout the piece there will be two pairs of high instruments on the side balconies, an oboe and a soprano saxophone on each side. And the role that they play in the piece is as a kind of thread of commentary throughout the piece. So they first appear in the piece after a few minutes quite quietly, and then they gradually, as the piece goes on, build up and become more intense. And the audience will at sometimes be very aware of them, sometimes not aware of this contrast between the balcony instruments and the ones on the floor. But there will be a kind of active dialogue going on there, and at the climax of the piece, both the highest and the lowest sounds of the orchestra will be coming from all around, I think. Another great thing about writing a piece for the old Fruitmarket is that the space itself it's a great example of a space that's had a lot of its original character preserved, but it's been turned into something that has a new purpose as a concert hall now. And I've come to many concerts here myself and always enjoyed the ambience and the atmosphere of the place. It gives a concert a special kind of feeling, I think, and there's in a way nothing that I need to do with that as a composer. It's just something that people will experience when they come to a concert here, especially when it's filled with a full orchestra, which I imagine will be quite a loud sound. But I really like the fact that you can still see that it was a fruit market once, but it's now fulfilling a different purpose today, and there's something about the regeneration of old things into new that I think is quite appropriate for the subject matter of the piece Earth.